I think over here it doesn't. So I think it's
So
like.
you're doing shit, you're gonna hit on that dot.
Flip this down.
And then
It's go down. This is what I'm trying to do.
It's more important to hear you. It's more important to hear you.
Yeah, you're the big board. Okay.
That's supposed to have a light.
So you two are probably the most quiet ones.
Okay. So you're gonna give me a second. I don't know
Yeah.
if it's this
Yeah, you're good.
device or not. I'm not gonna need the other one, so. Hello.
Okay, you take your life in your hands. Parking in that garage with the city workers leaving.
Well, you came in at 4 o'clock. If you came in 5 minutes earlier, it wouldn't have been a problem.
I'm like, oh my God. That's in your car. Wait till you get out of your car. Try to get to the exit, then go downstairs.
For you?
I think they were. I think they were.
So I don't have the option to live stream. So what we're gonna be doing is we're just gonna be recording and we'll get this posted later.
Okay.
It's because they know I'm here and Mose's new, they're like, we're gonna update all the technology, they're on all the channels.
That sounds
All right,
All right, whenever we're ready.
all right, so let's go. We'll call to order the July 2023 Victorian Village Commission hearing. Our next business meeting will be Wednesday, July 26, 2023 at 12 noon at 111 North Front Street, second floor, room 204, which is this room. Our next hearing date is going to be Wednesday, August 9th, 2023 at 4 p.m. And that's at 111 North Front Street, second floor, room 204, same room that we're in. So take this moment to swear in staff. Go ahead.
Kimberly Bernarchi?
Do you agree to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, Kimberly. Introduction of commissioners present. Mr. Hissom, would you lead us off?
Jeffrey Esson?
Pete Schuler,
Melinda Shaw?
Reed Sprite, Tim Skinner.
Sean Conyers. All right, so anything with the overview of the hearing format, Kimberly?
I'm not gonna go through it. We'll get through it as we go.
Okay. Let's switch to the public forum, so I'll turn that over to you.
So the Short North Special Parking Area, the Building and Zoning Department gave a update at the business meeting regarding an update to the code that they presented to City Council, which I believe was presented on Monday, and I did not check to see if it went through, but it was in regards to businesses and or offices and medical offices under a certain square feet, getting a bit of relief from the parking. And any additional commissioners can comment if I forgot anything, but I think that was kind of what it boiled down to.
Anything to further discuss on that? Right. And there's nothing for us that we don't take any action. It's just more of a kind of an understanding of what's happening and
Yes,
that's
they were just giving us the heads up at a public meeting that this is what they were presenting, this is kind of how it would affect us moving forward.
perfect. All right, thank you. Let's see here. So approval of staff approvals. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve staff approvals.
Is there a second? Thank you. All right, so we'll go ahead for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. And then Kimberly, you read them off for any abstentions if possible.
All right, if you would like to follow along, they start on page 6 of the agenda with 996 Neal Avenue, 851 Neal Avenue, 997 Neal Avenue. And just those ones.
Oh, that,
I'm very short this month.
perfect. All right, so then like nothing there. So then kind of move forward with an approval of the minutes from the June hearing. Is there a motion?
I motion to approve the minutes from the last hearing.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion at all on the minutes? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. All right, Kimberly. Thank you.
All right, we will begin with agenda item number 1, which is 199 West 3rd Street. If the applicant wants to sit down while I'm reading the staff report, they're welcome to do so. So this application is to add a brick sidewalk, parking pad, and replace the existing patio with a new brick patio, replace existing concrete steps, replace the concrete stoop with new brick, remove the existing chain link fence and construct a 6-foot tall wood privacy fence with vertical boards. The proposed fence would be similar to an existing fence to the east. Mature trees on the property have been removed without approval. New trees, bushes, and plantings are proposed. For the staff analysis, I've included the commissioner comments from the May 10th hearing. The commissioners at the business meeting wanted to confirm if variances would be needed. Variances are approved by the Department of Building and Zoning Services, but required to be recommended by the Victorian Village Commission first. The commissioners also wanted to confirm if the hot tub was going to be included. If so, they requested additional information regarding the hot tub specifics, and staff did offer to X out the hot tub if it wasn't going to be included on the plans. The applicant has removed the tree at the corner of the property, which was previously seen in the last site plan. Since there were additional trees removed without review or approval, are the trees proposed appropriate replacements, or do more need to be considered? The proposed plants are not labeled on the site plan, and a list should be provided. Staff would recommend continuing the application to allow the applicant time to confirm which variances are needed, update the site plan accordingly, and to submit details on the proposed plants. Basis for staff recommendation is City Code 3116.13, these standards for site improvements, as well as the Victorian Village guidelines on fences and yards.
Perfect. Thank you, Kimberly. Can you state your name, get you sworn in, sir?
Bruce Schumark.
Do you agree to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Can I go turn it over to you?
I've reworked the plan so that it's color coded. It makes more sense to show the fences that exist, the chain link one that is to be removed, and the additional fencing I want to add. I spoke with the zoning office, and I think that was included in their
Yes,
paperwork.
that email has been included.
So she felt they don't have an issue with the amount of lot covered by hardscape. I did have the wrong dimensions for the parking pad, so we are tweaking that by a foot. She mentioned the same thing about putting a tree in the corner of the lot where the fence is, and that would block the traffic, so there's a 10-foot triangle that it would set back from. I guess that's it. I guess.
Perfect. All right, so we kind of heard the last items that we kind of had on this one was, those conditions that have been addressed. I think it's just really, do we have enough information? I think from that perspective. So one is, tree count now, and how that tree count, does it still satisfy, which I'm presuming, with the demolition, it probably does. With the removal, that's still that one tree that was in the viewing triangle.
Mhm.
And I think the biggest item is, the plant selection information. Was there any other thoughts now that the gentleman has clarified, how these kind of site elements are coming together with the color coding? I think that helped our discussion last time for sure.
That it's fairly, then when he was asking, it's complete, you can't really understand what he's trying to do, so
For sure.
I'm fine with it.
Awesome. And any other comments at all? I think the notion is to basically be able to continue the application in order to provide a little more information related to plant selection that could be included that would allow us to, go ahead and proceed with a vote on the information.
Is there a way I could come back with when I get more figured out on plants? I'm hoping just to work on the hardscaping to get that in place and then detail the plants.
Yeah, that's a fair ask. From that perspective, I guess I'm gonna just kind of.
You're gonna defer to me.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the A and the B kind
I
of.
mean, I think that's fair.
Hardscape, and then we understand the intent of the plan, I mean, from that perspective, and that's something that.
So since the plan has all of the bushes and trees on it, in order for me to stamp it, I need to know what you were thinking of planting. Just because the stamp kind of gives an approval for the overall design. So if there's a couple different options you're thinking of, but, we could probably give a little bit of leeway if, you're thinking of a couple different bushes you might want to put in, or we could always go back and revise as well.
In one of those plans, did I have them labeled the first one I sent in?
Mhm.
Because it was gonna be a lot of hydrangeas along the house and along the front row. And then a little boxwood hedge, a lawn. And then along the back fence along the cars was gonna be some sort of just low hedging kind of thing between the parking, between me and my neighbors. The tree that I wanted to put on the corner, which will be set back, was type of magnolia, but it's not the sweet bay magnolia. It's Leonard, maybe it's.
So what are our options? So can we
split this into?
So we could split it. It sounds like he knows what type of plants he wants. It would just be getting me that
There would
list.
be more, yeah, I'm wanting to put some more, but I don't know how that's gonna play out yet.
I'd be comfortable even if we're able to split this into a hardscape approval, a landscape approval that is pending, even a committee review.
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
I think that'd be,
That'd be very helpful.
yep.
Is that fair?
That's-
Okay, so, A, is going to be the approval of the hardscape. Is there a motion?
I'm sorry, one last thing, the hot tub, is that?
There is no
that still-
hot tub at this point.
Hot tub.
okay. So
We could cross that off.
So we should include that in the motion, so as far as clarification.
I can just put an X over it on the plans, but if you're not going to have the hot tub, are you just going to continue the,
The patio would be there, covered where the hot tub would be. It's a
okay,
rectangular patio.
yeah, and I typically, if we were working from the staff approval, I would request updated scale to measure drawings, just so I've got an accurate site plan to stamp, that way there's no confusion later on.
With measurements from the house to the fence line,
Yeah,
that
well-
kind of,
Here, so you've got the hot tub up here, and if, we're not gonna have the hot tub, but we're gonna have the continued
yes, we would just have to,
papers. It would just need, that would just need to be gone, we just have to have the outline where the papers
got it.
would be, just because I want to make sure that what's getting approved and what's getting stamped is the most accurate and the most up-to-date thing, because sometimes we've added comments and then those have gotten lost, and there's been confusion, which we have resulted in
I understand.
code violations, and we'd like to avoid those.
Good dialogue for sure. Okay.
So
A is hardscape.
make a motion for 2305-007-199 West Third Street. And that would, avenue, I should say, not street, in two parts. First, A would be the hardscape
Hardscape fence.
and fence, which has been represented on the drawing. And then the second piece,
No, let's stay with that. Let's stay with item A. And then let's stay with item A only. That's
Okay.
the hardscape first with the motion. We'd love for you to add the information on the hot.
and hot tub representative will be removed and additional dimensions will be provided to Kimberly and office.
Is there a second?
I second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? So that motion passed item A. So that's hardscape and fence. So, can we move to?
Okay, item B for 2305-007-199 West Third Avenue. That would be soft gate, meaning applicant will get back with types of vegetation, and will provide that to the office, and we'll break that up into a subcommittee of Tim. Who else wants to?
I don't mind.
Evan and Jeff.
I was gonna say,
What did I call you?
Kevin.
he's been gone for like
I know.
almost 2 years.
I love it.
That's what
Keep
you
me much. Now the next thing you're gonna say, I'm too old for this commission and I'm gonna get it off.
You can't let it slip in front of everyone.
Worry about
I
that.
just wanted to make sure I got that on the camera. A lot of age discrimination is happening these days with
Yes.
state and
Don't worry.
city government, I might add.
Not recording, I promise.
Okay,
You got it.
can we have a motion?
Or second, maybe?
There's a second.
I second.
Any further discussion? Kimberly, do you need anything additional?
Okay, so it's just for the subcommittee. It is Commissioners Skinner and Converse, correct? I didn't miss anybody.
And I think Mr. Hisson is going to also.
Can we, as part of the information that you provide for plant material, and I think it's acceptable, you know, for trees that you're between a couple different ones, I think it's fine to ask for opinions on that. Also, if you can provide any information on the trees that were demoed, in terms of what the species were there, so it would just help with our evaluation of the, what's being replaced.
I know that those were they called them silver maple or swamp maple.
Okay.
They stopped selling them in nurseries. They said they're too dangerous in the cities.
Yeah.
And mine were old.
Okay.
Those are the ones.
That makes sense.
The one in the front that I saved is the same. It's also that, so it eventually will probably go, but.
Yeah.
But it's.
Any further? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passed.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
I just want to note, if there ends up being any variances needed, you'll need to submit that as a separate application because we need to bring it in front of the commission as a recommendation.
Okay. She mentioned a variant, not a variance, a clearance, a zoning clearance that I would show after I get the drawings from you.
Okay,
But there was no variance. It would just be a clearance, whatever that means.
okay. If you want to forward me who you've been talking to, I can double check with them to make sure that you don't need any variances as well.
It was the Gail Colvin, the one that I had
I
the,
forgot that the email says that. I was just more looking at content.
okay.
Thank you.
But we could talk
Kimberly
if I need to
gets
do
things
something
too.
else. I'll do that. All right.
My pleasure.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
She has an excuse.
I'm glad this is all being captured.
You did provide us valuable information that we, not remember otherwise. Alrighty. On to application number 2 before we get too distracted, which is 178 Buttles Avenue. And this is to remove deteriorating unlevel limestone steps, replace with poured concrete steps to match the existing dimensions, remove damaged and deteriorating concrete service walks in the front yard, and install new to match existing materials as well as dimension. A COA was issued to replace the front deck as well as to remove and reset the existing limestone steps and sheet wall at the end of the front walk if salvageable, to repair and level them with the caveat that the stone was damaged beyond use, to replace with poured concrete steps in the same location on June 14th of 2018. I've included the COA for reference as well in the materials. Because the COA was expired for more than 2 years, it went before the commission in May of 2022, so most of the commissioners might remember this one. A COA was then issued to remove existing and replace the existing concrete service sidewalks in Lake Kind and reset the limestone steps or cheek wall, which was approved on May 11th of 2022. That COA was also included. A condition of the approval was if the steps and the cheek wall were damaged beyond use, they would be replaced in kind with a stone product to be reviewed by HBO staff. The commissioners at the business meeting noted that it would be helpful to have the pictures of the example steps labeled as the addresses were not visible in all the photos. The applicant did provide photos with the updated file names, and those were PDF'd and included on the agenda. And they also provided me with some additional hard copy materials, which after I'm done with the staff report, I'll hand these out. And y'all can share if you want to view them, but they have, it looks like they have everything labeled on here, so that'll also help for us visual people. So HBO staff did go through all of the photos and check all of the files. So there has been a chart included in the staff approval. For sake of time and assumption that everybody has looked over the materials, I'm not going to read that all out. But out of the photos provided, only 9 have stone steps, including the subject property. Of the properties provided, most that have concrete have had these steps since 1978. Staff encourages retention and repair for contributing architectural features, such as the steps per City Code 3116.11, the standards for alteration. The commission will need to determine if the existing steps are in disrepair and if concrete is an appropriate replacement for the existing stone steps. A site visit can be scheduled if the commission would find it better to view the steps in person as well. And staff does recommend continuation of the application to allow for additional documentation of the damage deterioration to be submitted. And staff recommendations based on City Code 3116.11, these standards for alteration, as well as City Code 3116.13, the standards for site improvement, and the Victorian Village guidelines regarding fences and yards.
Thank you, Kimberly. Appreciate it. Get you sworn in. So can you state, each one of you state your name and get you sworn in, please?
Sheila Cornelius McVeigh.
And Randy McVeigh?
Perfect. Do you agree to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Go ahead and turn it over to you guys. Thank you.
Well, it's just a simple request. All we're requesting is basically we want to just continue to improve the steps. And we want the opportunity to use poured concrete like basically 70+% of the other houses on our block and throughout have. Everything else, that was basically it. I mean,
And the sidewalks.
and the sidewalks too. Again, just trying to keep the neighborhood looking good. So we're looking at repairing those. We're gonna do the stairs, go ahead and do concrete sidewalks as well. All same dimensions, no change, just a matter of just making it look good.
It's just material change.
Correct.
Gotcha. All right, so I do remember, I'm just gonna, perfect, so I'll just switch over to commission comments. So we heard staff's approval. I do remember us having some dialogue related to this property at that time. And I mean, I think at that time, a lot of us we were looking at the analysis of the material. We were taking staff's recommendation with understanding it. We just didn't know in the complexity of the construction, if they were going to be able to salvage, the material and what those implications would be. So I think if you kind of look back at the COA was kind of written in that same manner, that if there was an issue, that they would have the opportunity to come back and have that dialogue at that time. But with what's being asked for, just would love to hear the commission's comments related to the requests in terms of altering to material to concrete.
The only thing, I mean, I think they've gone through the process and now it's changed a little bit. So that's kind of frustrating for neighborhoods.
For sure.
One thing that I remember what we did on Park, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what we did was there was a house and they basically kept the cheek walls and then they filled in the steps, which was kind of a nice combination of. So I'm wondering if you guys, keep those cheek walls,
Our next
do
door
your
neighbor.
sidewalks, and then do that. I think that might be, that keeps the historical precedent.
The next door neighbor's house at 180
Did
is cheek walls with cement.
so I think that's something that we should kind of truly consider as an option for this. Because it's been successful. We did it on Park and we did it on.
And we're okay with that. I mean, like I said, it's in our interest to have it look good and remain looking good. So, and we have cheek walls now. It's just the limes, those stairs, it's just
Yeah, and
extremely.
those cheek walls. Thanks.
Well,
The structural integrity of those probably won't change versus the vertical of the stone, so I'm sure that could be retained. So that's my only 2 cents on the situation.
Do you recall, Jeff, if there was any thought about, obviously when you say concrete, it's the end result of the concrete is going to have a lot of variation in terms of presence, depending on who does it, et cetera. So do you know if that had a kind of a buff wash or did you?
You know what I don't know,
was
but
that-
looking
was that like
at,
sensitivity?
looking at all the discussion the applicants provided us,
Uh-huh.
maybe a sandy grit or something to the concrete to make it more, stone-like
Kind of giving it an
than
agent look.
concrete
Gotcha.
could be. And I'm sure there are people out there that can do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
that's what a buff wash is.
Is that,
Like the concrete that's out in front of this building, the sidewalks.
okay, yeah.
The buff wash is, they also call it a micro etch.
What do they call it?
It's also called a micro etch. which
Micro
is
etch.
It's technically a form of exposed aggregate concrete, but it's
Yeah.
really, really fine, and it
Yeah.
just gives that little bit
Little
of
extra
texture, a
finish,
little
got
bit
it.
of richness that I think would absolutely help.
Got that.
So it's not bright white.
Yeah.
Right, and by the way, I agree with you. That's a first I don't like the print. I'm with you, so that makes sense. I mean, your thoughts?
Yeah.
Good?
No, I don't want it to look brand sparkly new.
Yeah.
So are the steps deteriorated? I really can't.
They really are, and excuse me, they're getting there. And, anybody who knows me, preventive versus waiting until it breaks. So it's still fine, but it is definitely crumbling, and everyone we've asked has said the same thing, that they're not gonna be able to move it. We've asked 3 or 4 different folks, could they move it, and they said they're bound to crack, just because they've been there for,
So leveling them, they would crack while you're.
correct.
I've leveled them once about 20 years ago. And every person I've had a quote from, they pointed out every fissure, every like crack and
Yeah.
where it's gonna crumble.
So I just got, a high level question in terms of timing, in terms of the work. Is there a contractor that's currently engaged right now and?
We've asked, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I've got a spot on hold for early August
Okay.
that as of last April, he was holding for me. I don't know if he's still holding it.
I'm just, completely understand the dialogue that we're having in terms of the solutions. I was just trying to figure out if there was a time to be able to allow just the process of being able to, allow staff to see it, agree, we document it, and then the solution is still implementing what we've talked about. But more about just allowing that process to take shape, similar to siding or something of that nature, if it's that important from that perspective. So I just, given some of the things the staff has raised in terms of 31, 1611, that's.
I'm going to remind you, staff also runs much more conservative than the commissioners at times, so that might create a, difference of opinion too.
Well, I'm gonna ask the question, right? So, the original COA was for leveling if you can, if you can't, replace with limestone, right? Same materials.
The original was to replace with concrete if the limestone couldn't be.
The 2018 one.
Oh, the 2018 one, I was
The
looking at the
original.
2022 one.
And I know, I wasn't here for the 2018, like the older one that they reference as well. I don't think a lot of us were. So
So, I guess I'm working with what I got.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
The code is, with like materials, right? So I think that's what we want to talk about first. And then if that can't be done for some reason, we just want to make sure that we have a reason why.
Correct.
Right, so can you talk at all about, did you look at getting it done in limestone as opposed to concrete?
We've looked at the estimates on limestone, and everyone has basically come back and said, hey, it's incredibly expensive. The 2 quotes that we've provided, at least the one for sure that looks at it, it's double at a minimum. And again, back to fundamental differences, the point we're bringing to you is we're trying to do it proactively and have it look good, as you've said in the finish. I like the finishing idea of it. The cheek walls work very well, but at the end of the day, with everyone else pouring, we're asking us to have the same basic use of material as everyone else. Now, if you refine how we shade it and all that, that's perfectly cool. It's just that 80% of the people have what we're asking for that we were approved for originally. We're just asking for that same consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Next steps. I'm just kind of thinking this through.
Kimberly, what are you thinking about a site visit and whether that's appropriate for to have some staff go out and take a look at it?
Staff can go out. We could also do staff and commissioners if we wanted to do a subcommittee review as well. I'm not sure what my time frame is on getting out there though. So that can also hold things up.
That's what I was asking
Yeah,
about.
I don't want to throw a wrench in things either.
Right, exactly.
I don't want to put a wrench in things either, especially if they have a spot.
That's why.
Yeah.
Doing something like this. So what's the quickest way to expedite this?
Not sure that's the right question. Want to ask. It's not always-
Well, if
it's
you
not
don't
always-
throw a wrench, you don't know when you're gonna be able to get out here.
Yes.
We have a thread with this project. We've seen how it's gone along,
So the 2018 COA did state, either kind of repairing it in kind or replacing it with concrete, which that was also done by a different member of staff who didn't always use the best practices or follow coding guidelines, which throws a kind of a wrench in everything, because I've had to clean up multiple things after her. And then when they came back to us before, last year, it was with the caveat of a stone-like material, and that also does depend, if you're putting a finish on concrete, does the commission consider that in like kind enough? If it's mimic, it sounds like it might mimic the appearance.
Stone's like,
That's
yes, correct.
I think we can clarify that in a motion from that perspective, you know, what I mean, to, you know, I guess, try to make sure that we kind of clean this thread up. to some
Yeah.
degree.
And it sounds like, you know,
Or-
there's been a compromise being offered of keeping the cheek walls.
Keep the cheek walls,
So,
replace the concrete with stone-like appearance.
Yeah, and then maybe we have a subcommittee when they figure out who they're gonna have to do it, and they can show us the finishes, and we could say yay or nay.
That would be appropriate, because
I mean, I would be fine with that if that's
I,
agreeable with you guys.
One thing to consider here with the cheek walls, and I'm not a mason, but the expansion and contraction of concrete and the existing limestone is probably not gonna play nice together.
Oh, you have to have a joint.
you guys.
Well, okay, so if that's a solution, if it's just a,
And they should know that also.
And there's a
you should.
I don't know which one this is, but I know whose home this is, but I just don't know what number it is. It's right. It's one of the images, and those are, there's really 4 precast components. They thought it was concrete. There's 4, you know, so for instance, the 2 cheek walls and then the 3 steps are limestone, but that was, you know, so which is this one here. And so that same condition, you know, in terms of that joint, that control joint between them is what will be represented.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
That's
so
not branded, or we could be doing limestone and
this is Jeff's home, but I just can't remember, so I'm the corner of, I just don't remember the address. It's on the corner of Burroughs and Dennison.
oh, okay, yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah, let me see, okay, I got it.
you know,
Is that one of the last photos?
it's,
No, it's 37 and 39.
yeah, I combine all my photos, so I don't know what number this is.
Yeah, so that might be 773 Dennison, that it kind of goes down and is the L shape.
Yes, it turns the
Yes.
corner. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Yes, that,
Yeah.
that one, if it's the one I'm thinking of, their COA actually noted those steps were supposed to be limestone and they look like they're concrete.
And they're not, they're actually limestone.
Okay,
They're limestone. They're limestone. I remember when there was an accident, the car hit the first. Mhm.
that's noted in the
Okay,
COA.
that's correct.
So let's get back on track, let's.
So what I'm saying, I guess, that will be representative of the installation from that perspective.
Correct.
But I would agree in terms of process, it seems like we did that. We had a subcommittee of them being able to share imagery or whatever it may be of what they're going to, the finish. And then that would clean up the thread.
Yep.
I think I would feel comfortable.
I agree with that.
And how are we dealing with precedent on this one, just to be clear?
You know what I was gonna ask.
Well, the fact that they have done their due diligence of exploring the viability of the original material.
And the language was, so,
And they're keeping what they can.
Yes.
and they're
Right, but
keeping what.
I'm talking about not using the same material and time for a reason other than financial.
It's also the neighborhood too. We're looking at it, it's not only the expensive, which it is, but also surrounding areas. And by the way, there's multiple finishes, so I'll be interested to see, if you look at the different pictures, they look very different. So I'm not sure which is the right finish that everyone's looking for, but it does create a little bit of an issue. As you can see in the pictures that she's sharing, some have, some look, some don't.
I mean, I think Jeffrey was saying that keeping the cheek walls is the way
Yeah.
to deal with that, but I don't, then that means everyone else can keep just the cheek walls, right? So I'm just trying to be careful here.
For sure, no, I completely appreciate it.
Can I ask a question? When you were talking about, I believe Jeff Smith's house,
I think so.
7-3.
773, were you talking about the lower steps or the upper steps?
The lower steps.
Okay.
Yeah. It definitely doesn't have the veining and stuff like that. And I think,
Right.
you know, a lot of the newer quarries and such, you know, it's just unfortunately, you just don't get that, you know, that veining and such, so. But, yeah, I think that's why some of the imagery and from the staff's review of some of the imagery, there were some locations, you know, 8 or 9 of those that were maybe presumed to be concrete, but they actually were stone. You know, it's just,
Yep.
It just has a different appearance to some degree.
The Indiana limestone you're getting now is much more consistent in color than.
Yeah.
The older ones look more like a Columbus limestone, which you can't get.
So I need a little bit of help, guys. I'm just trying to answer Reed's question to some degree. I know that I want to help move this one forward, but I respect what Reed is asking us to do and asking for, you know. Is how do we deal with the precedent kind of condition as part of the motion?
I mean, part of it, even if they get a limestone step, it's not gonna match.
It's gonna look a lot like the concrete. I think that's
Yeah,
the key to this.
the concrete could be a better
I mean,
match color wise.
Looking at that one you just pointed out, it looks like.
Like concrete.
Yeah.
But, so that we're just, then that's what we accept, right? So are we saying, do you want to do a pilot? Or are you looking to do something as a experiment or
Business case?
a test case? Thank you. Just-
Honestly, I mean, is it really a test case? Because this is
Also a good question.
this has been done in the district. This is not a new
And-
thing.
So is it, go ahead.
Because I'm going to throw in the caveat of most of the ones that I came across are technically they're historic concrete steps because they were replaced either before this was a district or very early on. So they've also gained historic nature in themselves. So we'd be possibly looking at other ones that are concrete as, well, this is historic. Is it a good feature? And if they wanted to replace it with something different, like say they wanted to put concrete block in or something.
Right, I mean, is this an opportunity to talk about what those concrete specifications should be? You know, we're updating modern materials because some things just have to be done over time, right? Is that something we're maybe, why I say test case or whatever, that,
For sure.
you know, we're talking about the buff wash, should we get into the specs of that? Say this is what it needs to look like, you know, shapes, what, you know, form, all of that.
Well, I think concrete is an acceptable historic material.
Yeah.
I think that.
Especially when you put a finish on it, that's one. Two, if this was a roof and we said, you keep the north side and the south side in the original material, we're gonna let you use this other material. I mean, I think we're playing the same dance, so I'm not so sure we need this justification or special situation. They're keeping those side things, they're replacing it with something that replicates, not, or looks like, or
Well,
feels.
the code is for in-kind, right? It's the same material, and the material exists,
Yeah,
right? So that's what I'm looking to work around is
right.
that.
Well, stone exists, not necessarily the same stone.
Okay, there's something to work with.
So
So do you say in-kind doesn't exist? Anymore?
So to read off the section of code specifically, so deteriorated architectural features shall be repaired rather than replaced whenever possible. In the event replacement is necessary, the new material shall match the material being replaced in composition, design, color, texture, and other visual qualities. And that is the standards for alteration, this bullet point 6.
So that's 3116.6.
well, now if I was a lawyer, I could
16.
We can squeeze anything.
say that composition is,
Yeah, I think that's.
it looks like,
Yeah.
so therefore it is.
Yeah.
That's a kind of a no-brainer to me.
So, okay, no, I think I feel comfortable from that perspective, just with the 311611 item 6, with understanding that the current stone, like in kind, is not available. So, we're gonna maintain the cheat walls to maintain the composition. We're gonna look for.
Maintain the cheap walls as the existing limestone are replaced.
Existing.
Existing, okay.
And only
Yes,
because of
material.
those, yeah, the historic material.
Yep.
And at the same time, those are functioning and structural stability of those are not being compromised from that perspective. And then the items, which will be the stairs, that looking for a stone-like presence through concrete. And then those finishes will be reviewed once a contractor is hired with the subcommittee.
Yep, okay, yep.
And then the hope is that this result will help us for this condition that ultimately we'll be faced with in the future.
Yeah.
Given technology advancements, et cetera.
What's the last name?
Big, of,
What's your last name?
McVeigh.
McVeigh.
Yeah,
We'll call it the
MCV.
McVeigh solution.
Okay, or Big B, that works.
McVeigh, and it will be memorialized by 178 photo. How about that?
Put a sign there, there are.
Yeah.
This is the first of it.
I think that sounds like a winner, you guys.
Okay, so is there a motion to? Yeah, motion.
Can we just repeat what you said?
Yeah.
Did you get that down, Kimberly?
I actually did. That's also acceptable too.
Okay,
So I will go back and double check it as well,
Is that,
but what is the subcommittee review?
okay,
But as long as that's okay with you, because that's what Sean was asking when I interrupted him.
who wants to do the subcommittee?
I'll do it.
Okay,
so the only thing that I'm just gonna say is that I didn't kind of iterate, or I didn't say is, is the ideas about the finish, so buff wash, the micro edge. That will be the spirit of what we want to see back related to the concrete steps and possibly the sidewalks as well. Because I
so
think.
how
you
about
would
them
want
when
that.
they're done? That's good,
Okay,
that's a good idea.
So is that photographs?
I'm going it off.
Is that photographs versus?
yeah, if they have any, if they have any properties of
Part-
photographs is perfectly fine from that perspective.
Kind of shows.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
agree with whatever they say.
Okay,
Yeah,
We're not gonna make.
Buff Wash is about as far as I get.
all right, so we have two people on the subcommittee.
Yes, and I just real quickly before we get the second one, I explain the subcommittee, before we get out of here and there's any confusion. But what will happen is you'll submit whatever those finishes are to me and then I'll give them to the commissioners. They typically get about a week and then I start harassing them. They'll get it back to me at some point and then I'll get back to you. So it might take a little longer than we all think. 'Cause they're busy, I'm busy, but most of the time we are pretty.
Yeah, as soon as you give us what we need to get back to you, we'll hop on it. So,
All right.
yeah, you got it. Great.
All right, so
Okay,
Commissioner Kiss made that motion based on what Sean had said. Do we have a second?
I second.
perfect. All right, any further discussion?
All right.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's passed. And the subcommittee is going to be Mr. Issom?
No, it's both Tim and Melinda.
Awesome.
Yes, and you previously stated 3116.11 standards for alteration, subsection 6 as your reasoning. So I just wanted to add that as well.
That's correct.
That way everything's in one place.
I know you got it.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thanks, you guys.
Hey,
Thank you so
for
much,
your time.
Mr.
Thanks.
Likewise, thank you so much.
Good luck.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks again.
Next application
Thank you.
is, you're welcome, thank you. Is number 3, which is 788 Highland. We have the applicant for 788 Highland. Come right on up. So this application is to install the bright covers patio on the east facing 4th floor terrace. Patio coverings would be translucent panels, powder coated frames. Proposed patio covering would measure approximately 9 feet by 18 feet, covering most of the patio. Commissioners at the business meeting requested photos from the public right of way to the existing balcony. HBO staff has checked the file and also photos submitted with the application have been included with materials, but the applicant did provide updated ones, so those materials have been updated. Patio coverings are an architectural feature, and if this one is approved, the commission needs to discuss, is the style appropriate for other units of the entire building? And if so, would this be something we want to move to staff approval in the future? Because if we do, we could just add that caveat on as well. And the commission should also discuss whether retractable awning be more appropriate in this space. While the balcony cannot be seen from the right of way, their proposed design should still consider the standards for construction, which are City Code 3116.12, pardon the typo. Staff does recommend approval of the application as submitted, with any and all clarification to be submitted to staff for review and approval prior to issuance of the certificate. Basis for staff recommendation is 3116.12, new standards for new construction.
Thank you, Kimberly. Can you state your name, get you sworn in?
Lindsay Silverblatt,
Do you agree to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. God, turn it over to you.
As Kimberly said, we have a 4th floor east facing terrace that has no shade currently. So we're interested in having a bright covers patio cover installed that will match the hardware on the building and also block 60% of UV rays while still allowing enough light in that the room that it's attached to won't be dark anymore. So we thought this was the best solution for our cover. It is, as Kimberly said, not visible from Highland or Bose. And it overlooks just the sunken garage entrance and AC gas meter area of our building.
All right, thank you so much.
Sure.
Is there any thoughts or?
So I wasn't part of this because I was out of the country.
I think this is the first time we've seen.
This is the first one.
We had it.
Okay.
It was.
This seems really kind of dangerous to me. A terrace, is there any talk about just doing a shade that will roll out and roll back versus something that's permanent like that? We had this problem when we did the Dakota of, you could have a structure, but it was taken down. It was taken down in the winter. It was put up in the summer. So we didn't have this. And even though it's on a back-facing part of the building, just like we had the step situation that was just here, you don't see the difference, whether it's facing Neil Avenue, whether I can see it or not, this guy got to do it. So I think we should think about this and this material. I mean, it doesn't look very architectural to me. I think it's more about shading. So that's my 2 cents.
It's understandable. I think that just from a staff's perspective, I think staff's kind of recommendation just did kind of harp to the reviewing the.
I mean, because you saw that picture.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
know that was probably the spirit of some of the discussions on Victorian Gate as well, if I remember correctly, on some of those units was the retractable awning solution.
Well, I mean, and we just had the guy who had the house on Puddles that was trying to do the little place between his pool, and we were saying,
For sure.
that's not the right mechanic.
That was also a historic house.
Yeah,
this was constructed in 2021. There's another photo. That one's very suburban thing that they used in that one. There's one more photo that shows what it looks like. This is a friend's rooftop deck that's in Harrison West. It's, I think it's after the,
I mean, even just the proportions of that overhang in that picture.
Yeah.
yeah, that's not pretty solid. Yeah, that's just the one that they included in the CAD drawings, but, this is an example of one that was done by the same company, on a rooftop deck in Harrison West and a similar condo construction. And you can see that it only overhangs maybe a foot. It's not as pronounced. And this is the grayer material, so it's not as dark white. It blends more with the structure. But we did look into the retractable awnings. We would prefer to have coverage year-round for protection of the balcony and the furniture around the balcony, but also because we're on the 4th floor, we have a lot of wind up there and nothing to stop the wind. And we were told that they wouldn't last very long because of the weather conditions at that height. And there's no elevator access, there's no like they're going to have to pull each piece up the side of the building. And so one of the things that was also attractive to us for this particular company is that the materials are rated for 20 to 25 years with no maintenance required. Whereas something that's rated for a lesser amount would be operationally challenging, I guess, to maintain it and have it serviced at some cadence.
Well, one of the thankful things is this commission doesn't oversee Harrison West because this solution, I can't tell you how many units have those 4th floor decks that have no shade, nothing. And, how do you regulate this kind of thing? Very, very hard to do. And I have to look at it as a name. So I hear what you're saying, and I just want to,
Sure.
what everyone else thinks.
It's a tough predicament. I mean, it seems like they've thought through, I guess, not necessarily the immediate solution, but just trying to understand the constraints long-term. Just trying to figure out in my head, like what other solutions are out there, to satisfy the conditions that they've been presented just in the base building, in that perspective. So,
I would be concerned about wind at that on the fourth floor. And how fast it could damage a retractable or canvas awning. And then,
Or how stable it would be in the first place.
right, and then what are you left looking at? Something that's definitely less attractive than this.
So is there, I guess, okay.
Well, it's just, I agree that
Killing me.
I agree that it's a slippery slope. I think the only reasons we're considering it is location and
Newer build.
newer build, yeah.
Mhm.
And
It would
and
not be
maybe, and
appropriate
maybe
on
that's,
Victorian.
and maybe that's enough.
So,
That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah.
to Kimberly's point, this would not be a staff
Not visible.
approval thing. Right.
We could, well, there's
So-
often cases of newer builds approving either an awning type or multiple
In a newer,
in a newer build.
I see.
I think it's also a unique case on this building that it's not a bunch of like units lining side by side where you're gonna get a condition where you're gonna have 5 of these in a row.
Agreed.
There's something about the composition of this building where you have this one unique, the way I'm reading it, terrace kind of tucked in the middle of this.
All of the units have a terrace of some kind, well, not all of them, most of them, but, I don't know if there's, I can certainly submit a photo if you like. Each unit has a terrace, but they're all kind of set
Yeah.
off, so. that-
Is there a condo association associated with it?
Yes, the HOA has provisionally approved it pending approval by the.
So maybe the first guy in.
For sure.
So
Okay.
I guess the only thing that I would like to see is I see this cross section. You know, I see there's a gutter. I see there's an aluminum post. I would kind of like to understand the installation just a little bit more
I could see.
from an architectural standpoint.
And the
what the
dead
details
overhang that you talked about, things like that, I could see.
Yeah.
I could see that.
That's the only thing I would.
I think it's in the CAD drawing.
Yeah.
They will install a gutter on the cover and that will connect down to the gutter that exists on the building today.
Yeah, it was there.
I think it's on one of the drawings.
That's page 4. Yeah, that's there.
There it is right there, right?
So we could get away with a half round if we wanted a half round, or is it just matching the existing? I mean, those are the questions that, here's an opportunity, if in fact you're gonna do that. I don't know,
This building doesn't have half round.
Right, it's already the gay style gutters.
but this is a terrace, this is a totally different thing. It's a one-off. And is that a good contrast? I don't know. That they didn't do half rounds because we didn't make them do half rounds.
Well, we wouldn't make them do half rounds because it'd be inconsistent with the building, right?
No, that
He's
this is
saying
the
that
new
they
build.
make them originally on the new building.
Oh, on the new building, wait, for the original?
Correct.
Oh, that's a different question.
That's a different question.
Yes.
So I'm just throwing it out there, kids.
So it seems like just, I mean, simplification of the thing, right? I think.
Concept, I think's okay.
Right.
Material, I think's okay. I would, even though they're little drawings, I'm not gonna go through and look at every single one.
I understand.
I need to see a concept and make sure it works.
Yeah, it's there.
It's there from your perspective. You're an architect.
Would a rendering help? Something with some color?
Something that will give us detail.
I agree. And I understand, Jeff, and I appreciate that, from that perspective, but I think that we would create a hardship of asking them to do more for this kind of condition based upon the information that's been provided. Yeah.
Although I'm going to throw in the caveat that for the, when we've got new porches, we do ask them for a section drawing. So is asking them for something like that. And
But I guess.
Is that what that is?
I'm
Yeah,
looking
but-
at that.
like,
I'm
that's a
trying to-
section drawing, yes. So I'm just saying, we go back to people to ask them for additional materials.
For sure, and that's why I'm saying, I'm asking, like, for the scope of work that's being asked and requested, what in this packet is missing from a traditional porch condition? You know, I know sometimes we have some conditions that are very hard to understand, and that's a little bit different, but this one doesn't seem like it warrants additional information than what's been provided to us to make the analysis, given the conditions that this house or this, building presents. That's what I'm saying. I'm trying to be as consistent as possible too with the homes and.
The only thing I don't see is color.
So, and I'm not playing the devil's advocate here, but page 1 of page 12, I mean, look at all those conditions coming together on that roof line. And that knee wall, and that railing. I mean, I don't think that's a typical condition where a shed roof or something would be coming off. So that leads me to say, and maybe I'm old school, but all these little details, I don't know whether they add up successfully, I don't know. I'm just saying, I don't think this is just a typical wall that this thing's coming off of. But maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. There's a mansard roof that's part of that. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things going on there, folks.
And that's fair in being able to ask, if it's a condition, like I guess what I'm thinking is that if there's clarification from the vendor in terms of these conditions of how that system is going to marry up to the current composition of the building, that's a request and it's understood. But I don't know if this project needs renderings to help us further explain or, the scope of work. So if the conditions are not clear, then I think that's a fair condition, or there's a fair ask there.
On page 1, the picture in the top left corner,
Mhm.
that's where you're seeing where it hits a mansard roof. But your patio doesn't go all the way there, right? Yours stops at that little half wall.
Correct.
So this roof is not hitting that mansard roof.
Right, you can see that on page 4. of
Yeah,
the
the view from below looking up at the terrace, right? That's the image that I'm looking at,
Gotcha. Yeah.
right there. Like it doesn't interact with the mansard, what I mean?
Are those on the other side of that little knee wall, are those your windows?
No,
No,
that's my neighbor's.
HOA is, they're saying that they're okay with it.
And and then the one last thing is in looking at that, is that if it's gonna be on the 4th floor, if it's gonna be a permanent structure, is that, for, as far as snow goes? I mean, obviously I would hope that a load could, but I mean, that's not a very big slope to,
I don't know if it discusses it in the CAD drawings at all, but it is rated to a very high level of weight. It might say.
I thought you were gonna ask what happens if the snowfall slides off of it.
well, that's another good
Started
question,
by
but
it.
I mean, it's been stamped by an
That's a good question, yes.
the drawings have been stamped by an engineer. If it was stamped by a structural engineer, they would have had to review the snow loads.
Right.
They would have to pull a permit that will also, that's
the business people. There's no visibility. For sure.
And it does say it says it will be compliant with the structural requirements set forth in the 2019 Ohio Code. So it's in there on page 9.
Is the color similar to the color on the page 11, the one with the football game on the screen?
Black.
Yes,
So that's.
we had originally requested a dark bronze with the gray, and the HOA came back and requested black to match the hardware.
And the panels would be that gray?
That gray, yep.
Okay. Good with that for the reason you talked about.
so let's go.
Okay, so, is there a motion? So it seems like there's enough information here. We don't need any additional information. So it seems like a motion will be appropriate. Am I hearing that? Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. So is there a motion?
I'll give it a go then.
Okay.
And it's a motion to approve, application VV 2307 005 778 Highland Street, as submitted.
I want to ask the question real quick. Since there's an HOA involved, we want to ask for the HOA documentation, just to be consistent.
Yes.
Yeah, so just to clarify, most of the time when there's an HOA, the commission asks to see or asks to be submitted that the HOA has signed off on it. So
Okay.
if something with a letterhead or an email. from-
Yep.
Can I add a few little things, right? So, I shouldn't say that. Is there a second?
A second?
Okay, so, discussion wise, so I think clarification of the black. I think, and then the gray panels represented in that one image. And then is there some way that we can just at least, just kind of reiterate the new construction, and the location, just right now?
Yeah, I mean, if we're citing chapter verse about why, yeah, it's because this isn't, because of the non-visible location of this particular spot, and it's a new build.
Okay.
So, you know, we would still want to review any of these in the future. Some similar installation.
Okay, and then we are, like, I think Kimberly, do you feel like I think if I don't know if we want to give away the fact of that future arches, you know, that building could just roll out with some of these conditions, because I don't know the building well enough that.
Yeah, no.
So I think,
Yeah,
this is for this one.
caveat of reviewing on a case by case basis.
That's
Okay, I was just asking because other places.
For sure, I just wanted
So
to
I
be,
wanted
just
to make sure we discussed.
perfect, okay, awesome. Then I don't have anything else to add. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Jeff opposed,
Mhm.
motion passed.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank
Can I
you.
just email you
Thank
the HOA?
Yes, if you beat me to it, that's perfectly fine, because I typically email out a letter if I need additional information, but if you get it to me before then, that's fine.
Okay, awesome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and then we move on to application number 4, which is 1012 to 1014 Neal Avenue. The applicant wants to come sit up front as I read this off. Is the applicant here for this?
So,
Oh, hearing silence, this is never a good thing.
okay,
All right, so we are going to give this one and then come back to it just in case they're running late.
okay.
And of course, I don't have anything. Right. Down. All right, Sean, if you can help me remember number 4.
Yeah, I just wrote it down, so thank you, yes.
I was like, I don't need a pen today. All right, and then we are going to continue on to number 5, which is incorrectly labeled number 7. This is 1156 Neal Avenue. So this application is to install a 3-foot decorative metal fence 2 feet back from the existing retaining wall. The proposed decorative fence to have a low perennial planting behind the wall and in front of the fence, and install a paver patio into the fence, install a 3-foot 4-inch urn style fountain water feature and landscape plantings as well. Staff analysis includes the comments from the commission from the May 10th hearing. The applicant has submitted the drawings requested at that hearing. I don't believe we had any comments at the business meeting, but HBO staff does not support the front patio areas. These are not a common feature found within the district per City Code 3116.13A. Historically, front sitting areas would have been areas such as porches. Staff does recommend approval of the application with the condition that the proposed front patio is developed into natural turf for plantings. Basis for staff recommendation, City Code 3116.13, the standards for site improvement, as well as City Code 3116.11, the standards for alteration, and the Victorian Village guidelines regarding fences and yards.
Thank you, Kimberly. You can state your names and get you sworn in.
Sure. Christina Lishansky.
Adam May.
Thank you. Do you agree to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, I'll turn it over to you guys.
So trying to remember what all we were trying to cover still on this one. The fence and the patio are the two main elements, and then the fountain itself. So we, at least from the last hearing on the conceptual review, we tried to modify the material. You know, I wouldn't necessarily call it so much a patio in the way that we redesigned it. Just we made the space, tried to look at the scale of it and make it to where it was, you know, not so much usable as a patio space. Christina's expressed that, you know, she doesn't really plan to sit out there. It's more just to have the look of it and to have something surrounding it, more of a visual cue going up into the house. So we did try to replace the original concrete pattern pavers with a flagstone that we could put like a creeping thyme, I believe we had said, or an alternative like a decorative gravel, a crushed granite or something to give it more of a garden feel, bringing in the natural stone. Switching up the fountain to a 360 view versus the previous one, which was one-sided and blocked off, the neighboring property. So we were trying to, convey more of a natural feel through the materiality, through the use of plant material. Just kind of try to respond to all the feedback, I guess, as best possible. Some of those photos too are just to show material, some just to show the, creeping time in between the joints of the gravel. So we would not plan to have like the polymeric sand in between the pavers, like in the picture on the left, it would be more of the two on the right with a natural cobble as the border, which is the second from the left there.
Anything additional?
I don't think so. We did scoot the fence back, like was suggested, and provide the section drawings just to kind of show the scale there. And unless you had other questions for us, I think that was all.
Perfect. Thank you. That's very, very helpful. No, I thought that the packet and you guys were very responsive to what we asked for to better help with the analysis from that perspective. So, so very helpful. So we have the two items. One is the kind of I think the easy one is the fence location. I think that one has been shifted. So any further dialogue on the fence location? All right. And then the second item was just the fountain. And it's hard to separate the fountain from, I'm gonna say the hardscape kind of component, or actually the stone that's kind of like the art of the deal that was talked about last time. So it seems like we have to keep those kind of together. So any thoughts, concerns, or just conversation related to it?
Well, I think we've come across this recently in other cases of the appropriateness of
Yeah, I'm kind of very happy with the solution because they listened to what we went through on Park.
Yeah.
They listened to what we talked about with the existing fountain. I think this is going to be very, very profound. I like it a lot.
Yeah, and I think that's the point, is that it creates it's about the focal point. It's not creating a traditional patio, which was the concern by staff. So I agree with it. I think it's evolved nicely and it's an appropriate solution.
And it's going to be great space.
Thank you.
So I know that Kimberly is going to ask why. So this need to be prepared from that perspective. But I think so. One of the things is the existing conditions is very reminiscent of the existing conditions from that perspective. So I think there's, when I look at this property, I think that there are some hardscape elements within that front lawn in the area. It's not necessarily the porch area, but just being able to offer some way to navigate the garden per se. And I think the other one that's kind of interesting with this property is that, I think the way the thought about that front, the activation, whether the activation should come from the front porch or should it come from a kind of a front patio. I think this is a kind of a unique property because it doesn't have a porch.
And it's kind of a replacing in kind in a very
So
sophisticated way, which.
right. So I guess those are the things that I just trying to help the conversation in terms of the why, given staff's notes, which we respect and understand.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So any further discussion at all? So
I think we will, and maybe we have at times, but in case, I don't know if the page is just not loading for me, but a planting plan.
Oh,
And I know the material is shown, but in terms of species selections.
sure. Yeah. That's not a problem to do. Yeah, I forgot to put it in there.
Yeah, we will still want to see that. And I think similar to previous case this evening, that can be a subcommittee review.
So just set it up just like we did the other one.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
all right. Is there a motion accordingly?
Go back. Motion for VV 23-07-007, 1156 Neal Avenue, A, and that would be for the hardscape as presented and the fence.
Then do you want to just make note of the, oh, so are we trying to split this up into a hardscape and,
Yep.
I'm so sorry, I apologize. Perfect. Is there a second?
Second?
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, no problem. Love it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So item A, hardscape and fence has moved forward.
All right, so I'm gonna ask a question of reasons for approval. I know we stated them, but I prefer to have it all together that way. If I ever need to look back, I don't have to go back through the entire recording.
The provided solution is as Jeff put it, a sophisticated in kind to existing conditions of the fountain, and is viewed more as a focal point feature as opposed to a traditional patio.
All righty, thank you.
Is there a motion for item B?
A. Oh, did we have A already?
We passed it.
Thanks, Kevin.
Love it.
Application 23-07-007, 1156 Neal Avenue, Part B. And Part B is requesting the plantscape and type of plantings to be sent to the office and a subcommittee of,
Me, because you're keeping me busy.
okay,
I don't mind helping,
okay.
if that's helpful.
Sean, anyone else like to be part of it? That subcommittee, um,
And you're not volunteering yourself, correct?
I can be, if you like 3, that's fine.
No, 2 is okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Okay, yeah, so those 2.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, well, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed.
Perfect.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for bearing with us.
I know we can be difficult.
All right, application number 6 is 110 Buttles Avenue. All right, this application is conceptual and it's for exterior modification of the house, which include renovating the rear elevation, moving the existing door opening to the center and adding additional windows. There are some options provided with that. The basement window would be relocated west. At the top of the infill panel, a new cast stone lintel would be installed. New plasters would be constructed to either side of the opening with the split face CMU to match the existing water table and cast stone coping to match existing. Install a new wood pagoda. I was supposed to update that. Pergola. I knew I was missing something.
We'll talk about it.
Some pagoda. 10 feet from the north elevation and new columns to have the CMU base to match the others. Landscaping includes removing the existing wood pergola, installing the new large format bluestone pavers and planting the new boxwoods or similar plant to screen the condensing unit for the garage. Install new concrete steps with the split face CMU and cast stone coping cheek walls, and install new wrought iron railings for the steps. Exterior modifications to the garage include removing the existing backlit sandblasted glass and wood slab panels, restore the south elevation to its original configuration with a hardy siding and trim to match the original, and installing a new mini split heating cooling system. Alterations to the roof include removing the existing roof tiles, membrane roof, and vinyl cladding. Temporarily removing the cast stone copings and wrought iron guard railings to install the new EPDM membrane roofing. Up the parapet wall over the top of the parapet and installing new flashings. modifying the salvaged copings with a saw cut drip edge on both sides and reinstalling at the south and west sides to ensure a proper 1-inch minimum drip edge on both sides. And the east parapet wall between the condo units would have a whiter cast stone coping to match the existing with the 1-inch overhang drip edge on each side. So commissioners at the business meeting requested documentation of the HOA approval or support for the proposed changes, which we got yesterday, and it has been included. The applicant clarified that the owner had previously wanted the conceptual feedback from the commission first before they went to the HOA. The HOA apparently was a little faster than we were. This is a non-historic townhouse, and does the commission support the different style of openings on the rear elevation as the original design intended the fenestration to match? Or is the commission okay with modification, especially based on the fact that the garage has been previously modified? Staff recommendation is to offer design feedback that can be utilized at a future meeting. Basis for recommendation is City Code 3116.12, these standards for new construction.
Thank you, Kimberly. And you guys state your name and get you sworn in.
Daryl Rogers.
Morgan Blagens.
Perfect. You both agree to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
We do.
Perfect. All right, I'll turn it over to you guys.
Yeah, I think the order in which it's been presented on the agenda is a good way to talk about this. The exterior modifications to the existing condominium building, it's obviously not a historic building, but it's a building that contributes to a historic district. So we realize when we come to a historic commission, an architectural commission, interior modifications that are being done to improve functional aspects of the interior, they're not really something that you would think are driving your decisions and the way you think. But this is where our conversation started. The existing condo, it's very narrow, and the rear of the condo actually has a kitchen and a dining room in it. So they're crunched together, and the existing door is on one side, and it's on the side where it dumps right into the middle of the kitchen. So it's a kind of a bad layout internally. I told my clients there are ways to make it better, but we have to do something good with the exterior because the commission will be scrutinizing this. And so we're here today to talk about that. We really think, I mean, we went through a lot of study to determine the best way to improve the interior situation, but also the balance of what it looks like on the outside. And it is in the rear of the condo. These little patio areas are like little urban oases for these owners. They keep them very private with the privacy fences and the horn beams, and they're secluded. That being said, we still want to do something that looks good with the original architecture of the back elevation. So when we started looking at a central door to improve the internal conditions, we first said, let's center that door on the existing windows on the second floor. Let's start with that. And they also wanted to have a pergola structure. There's not so much sun there because it's on the north side, but they really like the idea of defining some space. They do get some morning and some evening sun from the west and the east. They like the idea of a kind of a definition of space there, and it adds a little more of a sense of privacy. But it also is a device we use to kind of organize the revised elevation. So the window and the full light door, they kind of play off each other, and they're then centered on the shade structure, and the whole composition is then centered on the second floor window. So you may ask, did you consider brick? You know, if you're cutting these openings in, could you just, you know, modify the brick? And the challenge is we looked with all of our local resources for brick, and nobody can match it. Nobody knows what it is or how to find it. And that was from 3 different local vendors. But we also like the kind of lightness that gives that change to the elevation versus trying to, you know, too thin brick and then worrying about if the mortar joints are really going to match, even if you could match the brick itself. We like the idea of, you know, cutting that opening in, and doing something different with it instead of trying to play the game of, either matching masonry or toothing in masonry. I think we could stop there and maybe if you want to, and just talk about that proposed change, or would you like me to go on with?
No, that's,
Some of the other-
that's a fair approach, given that we can have some back and forth, given conceptual,
Sure.
and just to try to help, stay organized. So I was just writing some things down. So, let's just kind of talk high level about, exterior. So I'm gonna say composition, material, and then, it's hard to take the pergola out, given, as Dale kind of mentioned, it's a device, to try to help with the composition. So those three elements. So is there any thoughts about those three elements?
The composition of the rear still seems odd to me. I understand your comment about brick, though. That said, I've worked on historic buildings for a long time now, and I have yet to find a brick I haven't been able to match. And this brick isn't even that old, because as you said, it's not a historic building. So this would be an appropriate infill if this was a garage door. It doesn't seem in character for this building, which was all masonry openings, to have all of a sudden this large opening that's infilled with glass and wood with brick over it.
Yeah, and that was our first thought also, exactly what you just said. And we had Hamilton Parker, Columbus Coal Line, and Columbus Builder Supply come out and look at it, and everybody was scratching their heads. So then we were like, well, then we started talking about a complementary but accent color brick, and our clients were not interested in that. So yeah, we went through that exercise, and that was my initial thought as well. But the challenge of, even when you find the match, if the mortar isn't exactly the same color, it still jumps out.
So
And it's a game that's hard to play, honestly.
is there also a reason why those windows are so small? They're not like 3/4 or something along the back?
3/4 height.
They seem very small for an outward facing,
You're talking about the height.
yes.
Yeah. We have a kitchen there, and we're dealing with the kitchen counter, and that's, now there is an existing window on the west side, which is that height as well. So, we are tying in with that height that already exists on the same building in the same space.
This is really, and I'm kind of tired because I've had a long day. This just doesn't, it seems clunky to me on what it looks like, what the materials are. I understand what you're trying to do, and maybe I'm not seeing them in a consistent manner, but taking a whole masonry wall out and filling it in like that, I don't think whether it was a backside, side side, or a garage side, we'd allow this to happen.
I mean, I would raise the question of if you were to say be able to match the brick and that, it's big if. And I guess it's raising the question of us, but how would that look with the buildings as it is, right? We've got each back. Each unit is all the same.
Tree, you're still gonna have.
Well, it's gonna be a one-off, right? It's gonna throw the whole thing off, having one set that's like flat brick, but now this is a different configuration. This is a way to say, no, this is something different than that, and it's okay to be different. So
Yeah.
I read it a little bit
We're
different.
the same family, but it's a little different.
Right.
I don't think this is from the same family, though.
That
No, I'm saying what it should look like.
Right, you can argue exactly how to, but I think that
This
that
isn't.
that the concept works there in terms of, rather than trying to make a flat brick wall in a different configuration, I think that would look off in the lineup of buildings here. Granted, you're not looking at the building that way, as a series of condos that are all symmetrical in the back, but.
And quite frankly, I'm not so sure we would okay that elevation if we could match that brick.
So,
Its current configuration.
I mean, you guys, so it's like this, the ideal of simplification is, simple, I'm just writing things down from what you guys are kind of mentioning in the same family. So is there any thoughts of, materiality, composition, and pergola, how they could accomplish that? Or, because I think that right now what we're asking is that, the solution is of the same family. But can you be a little bit more maybe specific that may help?
So for
in that
example, what we
exploration?
would say in some kitchens before, those windows would be 3/4 and you would have a well in your cabinet at the edge of the cabinet. So from the outside, you have a planting box, from the inside, you have a planting box or something. But you're not just bringing up the window because you have a counter. And that's your solution. I mean, we
Understand.
a lot.
And those are just the things that may help them with that next step. So I just wanted to I want to be helpful to them.
Yeah, I mean, the building already has that window size on it and just around the corner. So I don't think we're starting a new precedent with that height window.
I think the team, I think the team is really looking at like the composition of the elevation. So looking at, the elevation that's on the screen and not
Yeah.
necessarily just the property or the
Right.
side.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just because it lies within the vocabulary of the building doesn't mean it's okay to put it anywhere.
So just to make sure I'm understanding, so what you're saying is you'd want to see windows of the same height as existing even, or that you just want to, okay, that's what you're.
Oh, even if they're this height, but they at least align with the ones above.
Line goes above.
What he's showing there, what do you mean?
They're in farther.
Yeah, so that's.
Well, we have some other options that we actually provided that I'm sure you've already reviewed,
I think it's the last one.
that shows exactly what you're talking about. So there we went with
Yeah.
the single
And I
window.
think from a window standpoint, that works better, but the paneling and stuff around it is so foreign to this building. Like the wood paneling and the stucco, and it's not represented from what I can tell in the photos anywhere else on these properties.
There's no stucco being proposed.
Well, or then whatever the paneling is.
It's just
in the wood.
wood panel.
Yeah,
Yeah. There's a lot of trim on the building in different places, but yeah, the front porch is and the front doors.
right, but that's wood trim, not wood
Yeah.
panels. So, I mean,
But doing a window that's as tall as the existing windows, yeah, it's going to be a challenge to make the kitchen work. And the well you're talking about would be, another 2 feet down, which would be very odd behind a kitchen counter
yeah,
and a 2-foot well
yeah.
in your kitchen.
And that makes sense. And I think that I guess, from a standpoint, I think that we're kind of analyzing the critique of is it within the larger, vocabulary. And so I can understand where the team members are kind of responding to.
Yeah.
I think the understanding of the goal, I heard simplification in the solution that would be more reminiscent to the vocabulary of the existing architecture. We agree that there are wood elements in other locations, so, materiality wise, how can, we put it back to the design team, how can you guys solve that? The 3/4 window condition and the oddity of it, we understand the oddities as it relates to new construction and that attitude towards new construction, but in this condition, this is a circumstance and a constraint that comes up on a lot of properties, given, the nuances of new technologies and how kitchens have advanced, but the exteriors haven't been able to advance alongside of them. So it may be odd to, someone who's looking for a new construction home, but it happens within the neighborhood in that context.
Yeah, there are a lot of different window sizes and different things happening with the facades, even on the historic buildings, for different reasons. When you have a stairwell,
For sure.
sometimes you have different window configurations because of an internal condition.
Yeah.
It's not exactly foreign to the neighborhood to not have all the windows
Completely.
look exactly the same. But I do hear what you're saying, and in this case, we're trying to balance that interior functional aspect with something that looks good on the exterior. And this scheme here, what is it called? D.3. We went with a single window, but of course, it's not preferred by our clients, but they do align with the second floor windows. Yeah, I mean, the brick issue, I would love to just say, yeah, we got a matching brick. And, that was our first thought, but we just can't find it. So that's the challenge.
So,
This is kind of like organic architecture where you find a 50-year-old, 60, 70-year-old row house and each person tries to do a different thing in their backyard. I mean, this is kind of the start of it.
Yeah, and there's precedents for that all over the
Yeah.
world, where if it's condos, you know, they don't stay the same, they do change. The front usually doesn't change much, but the backs, if you walk through cities in the alleys, you see different things happening. And if they're good, and if they are balanced with the original building, it's not a negative, but yet, if everybody does something chaotic and haphazard, it could be weird.
I think part of what it is, it's a lot of different, it's different materials, it's different size window, it's adding a pergola. It's getting to be really busy and chaotic, to use the word. So I think looking at this and trying to simplify it, so it's not so different, because right now, everything about it is different. Windows are different proportions, there's a different number of them, they're in different location, there's, you know, it's all completely different. Pick one or two different things and try and keep the rest the same.
Yeah, the condition of the privacy that's created for each unit, it's really, I mean, I don't know if there's a photo there that shows the seclusion of each rear facade. Yeah, it is one building, but you never see it that way, ever. And I believe in its entire history, it will never be seen that way. Because I believe each owner will decide to keep that privacy and keep that division, which lends itself to some different things happening with each unit on the rear. And I don't think it's chaotic. I think it's the way things evolve.
On the drawing that's 2C, I think it's page 4, is there, it has the 4, it's with those other drawings, well, it's page 4 on something.
2.0.
It's with the drawings that you were just at.
Is it A?
Yep, go back.
A 2.0.
A2.
Yeah, I think it was a drawing. Is it A 2.0 C? Is
A2.2C.
2C? Okay.
Right there. Is there a reason, maybe one of the things that kind of simplifies it, tell me if this makes sense or not, because I'm not an architect, is if the windows lined up more with the windows above them, that's one thing that would kind of
Yes.
do things to balance. So you have 4 panels and it's 2 different windows on each side, but then if they lined up with ones above them, that kind of balances that.
The challenge is if we do a pair on each side, then it's getting wider.
So with those right there, that's not a pair, that's.
Well, if you align the pair and shift them, you're getting to the point where the windows are getting too far across the space.
And so it's the pergola that's holding them.
Yeah, we were trying to route the pergola with what's happening above. But if you go to D.3, you'll see the in-between scheme, which takes it down to a single window, but that one lines up
On the inside.
with the inside window above. The pergola itself still lines up roughly with the
Yeah,
second floor edges of the windows. So, yeah, we were trying to respond to the existing facade.
Yeah.
And it's a challenge.
I would say this one's probably, at least for me, the closest, but the paneling is just
Mhm.
fussy.
Yeah,
It just makes it seem really busy and there's too much going on, where maybe it's more like if you look at the outbuildings on this,
Mhm.
it gets wood siding that's painted out to match the brick. So it's not drawing attention to itself. Right now, it's,
flat side.
pay attention to me on this new thing, and it's,
I don't know, panel and trim to me always reads very subtle, especially if it's painted to match all the other trim.
well, right now it's painted white and it's against, or cream, and it's against a dark red.
Yeah.
So that's what's sticking out.
Yeah.
If it's painted out dark red, it's not gonna be as noticeable.
Yeah.
Are you saying you'd be open to keeping a panel and trim? if we do a
I'd
color.
be interested to see that.
I mean, lap siding is on the garage. It's
Exactly.
also on the penthouse.
So there's a vocabulary for that versus they're
Mhm.
on the existing property, but there isn't vocabulary for the paneling.
Having lap siding in a cutout as an infill seems a little less formal and a little more casual
Yeah,
in terms
it's
of,
on the back of the building.
yes.
So,
But it's gonna feel more like that cutout of a garage door that you're filling in. You just throw some siding in, right? You know,
it does.
Feels like a suburban cutout. of a
If,
garage door.
that's why we thought the panel and trim, it kind of brings the lines of the geometry of the window fenestration, you know, across and up and down. So there's a little more refinement to that, but I would be very open to potentially going with what you're saying on, if it wasn't such a contrast in color, could you go to the 3D model view? One of them from the rear?
Page 59.
I think what you're saying has a lot of validity in terms of, yeah, it pops so much because there's so much of that kind of golden
Yeah,
cream color. But I would be a little concerned about it being, they painted the trim to make it look like brick, but it's not brick. So maybe it should be a subtle shade off.
well, it's always gonna be
Yeah.
a shade off because the brick
Right.
has multiple colors.
Exactly.
Or you do a different type of paneling, or orthogonal paneling, or something that's different, but it reads as a consistent thing.
I mean,
I
when
mean,
I,
this is kind of fancy paneling, and maybe it's a different type of paneling that's a little bit more simplified, that works as an infill behind all the rest of it.
Like a beadboard or something.
Yeah,
what I worry about is by doing that, we're making it look more like it's just a hole that we're covering up as quickly as possible. Right? Like what was the cheapest way of closing a big opening, right? And if it's beadboard or siding or,
yeah.
you know, it feels like a kind of an afterthought.
Now, we were talking about beadboard, were you suggesting to get rid of the trim and just have beadboard, or keep the trim and just do the panels with something other than flat?
I think you're gonna have to study it.
I think you have to study it. I
Yeah.
think there's a whole bunch of options you could do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably the takeaway here is with this configuration, I think everyone's liking the D3 so far. What other options can you do for can you present in terms of the trim and, you know, whether it's siding or beadboard, just something else for the commission to consider as an alternative. And that may lead us back here at the end of the day. We don't know, right? It's just we want to be able to see that, I think would be helpful.
We'd like to try to get final approval next month, so would you all be okay with us bringing multiple options to consider? And hopefully we could come to a resolution on at least one of them being one that's acceptable.
Here's something else to consider, and maybe a question is, some of these existing photos show what looks like a wood slat skirt on the
existing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that remaining?
No, it's not. Let's go to those photos. That was added by the owner after it was constructed. We feel like it's totally clashing with the original design. They plastered it onto the garage, the privacy fence, and the back of the house. So we're bringing back the masonry
That is,
okay. On the building, the exposed split face block.
Okay, I'm wondering what's behind there.
And then that stair also has the slats on it with the contemporary pipe rails.
Yeah.
So yeah, all that goes away.
Okay.
And the new steps will actually be an abstraction of the front porch steps where you have the cheek walls and the steps between them, similar to the case you were talking about earlier.
So I guess just to help wrap this one is, it seems like composition wise, I think pretty clear in terms of what the team is responding to.
Mhm.
Materiality, in terms of simplification, et cetera, seems pretty understandable.
Mhm.
Only one that I wanted to get just a little bit more clarity in terms of is the pergola itself, is its presence. So are they to study a solution that does not include the pergola? Or is the team, understood that the pergola is going to be present, it's okay, and it is needed to help resolve any inconsistencies.
I'd be curious to see what things look like without it.
I would too,
And
quite
if
frankly.
but if it does, if there is a solution where it remains, I think also the detailing of it as well needs to simplify. I think there's too much garden-esque fussiness going on with it that impedes and it feels a little odd.
Just wanted to make sure, obviously, when you come back with those options that, do you feel they have enough that would help that next step?
Yeah, I think the pergola, to me, is the main driver of how it relates to the existing facade. Kind of puts itself in a position to tie in with the second floor openings.
And that may be just be part of the solution.
Mhm.
I at least wanted to hear the team's, I guess, analysis that would help you with the next one.
I think simplification is definitely something we could look at.
For sure.
Yeah,
And before we jump into anything else, it is 5:45, and I know Sean had said that we have to hard stop.
I have a hard stop at 6 also.
all right.
Okay,
Keep telling.
that's no problem.
I was just gonna slip out, Kim.
So
Thanks.
do you feel like you guys have enough from that perspective? And
Yes.
taking that next step, next month?
Definitely, thank you.
Okay.
The patio area, we're basically removing the existing paving, putting in new bluestone, and then putting a HVAC system in the garage, so there'll be a little condensing unit sitting out there. We'll do some boxwood screening, but, it's really a bluestone patio.
Yeah.
Is there any comments or discussion on that?
No issue with the bluestone. You kind of are with the stair in the middle, creating these nooks that may be a little awkward, but that's, I think from a composition standpoint, it's fine. I'm just from a functional standpoint, it creates some challenges.
We've got a furniture layout that does work, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it may be beneficial to share that with that final solution, so we can kind of understand the reasons why, if there is dialogue related to the composition possible.
Yeah.
Okay. That may help. And then is there anything, I know that there's other alterations, like components. Is there any other concerns that you think you may have that challenges what would be considered appropriate with those other, like the roof, introduction of the E-Pay pedestals, pedestal kind of, flooring condition, et cetera, that you want to talk through?
Well, first of all, in the garage, it's pretty straightforward. We're ripping off the slats that were in the tempered glass, sandblasted glass, bringing back the cement, cement horizontal siding and trim. So basically, it'll look like it looked when it was finished. Is there any discussion we need to have on that? Okay. The roof is somewhat of a disaster, just in terms of its performance and what's happening inside the building because of it. But it's more of a technical challenge. Everything we're doing should not affect the appearance from the outside of anything. That's our goal, is keep the parapets the height they're at and the railings. But yeah, once you get up on the roof, you'll see a new tropical hardwood deck.
In that process, do you have to remove any of the stone copings and then put them back?
We do.
Okay,
Yeah.
I kind of know that too, so I wanted to make sure that whatever, kind of gets approved later on, that
Yes.
there is that note, because I don't want other,
I think it's already in the text, actually.
perfect.
Yeah.
Observers may
Yeah.
get like concerned that you're doing other exterior.
We've got to get that membrane up and over,
Mhm.
and we're gonna have the detail that allows a like a rain screen cladding on the backside. So at one location, we're gonna have to make a wider coping, so that we can still have the 1-inch overhang. From the outside, you're not gonna see that though.
Yes, sir.
Anything else tonight?
No, very helpful.
Yeah, very good.
Thank you for your feedback.
Likewise, thank you. We'll look forward to next month.
Thank you.
So Kimberly, we skipped over item 4, so can we have a motion to continue item 4? I'm sorry,
Motion to continue item 4.
is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
I'll try to see if I can't get a site visit scheduled for a second location or something, so we can develop.
Okay.
But I haven't heard from them, so now I'm kind of worried that I don't have their email or something.
Okay. That's a citing, right? If I remember
Yes, that's
correctly?
the citing.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, that would be helpful to be able to help that. I mean, that's probably what we would have asked for in today's discussion, so,
Yes.
okay. Is there anything else that we need to take care of?
Right, there is one item of old business. Columbia Gas did provide an update that they're going to be working along Mount Pleasant Avenue, North Pearl Streets, Say Avenue, Potter Alley, East Third, West Third, and parts of Aston Road Lane, Star Avenue, part of West Third Avenue, and Dennison Avenue. I'm not sure if the material included provided a date with that or not, but they did.
They already
send
did
an
it.
update.
At least on Aston Row Way, so they blocked the alley, that was a nice surprise. So, some of it's already ongoing.
Okay, they kind of emailed me like last month, so by the time you guys get updated, I'm kind of behind.
Yeah.
But nothing.
Well, I shut off my gas too, that was nice. That they didn't tell me, all of a sudden the gas is off. So. Anyway.
Anything further, team?
No.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
Are the microphones off?
No, hold on a second. You weren't here, but this is Mosaic. He
Hello.
is our new kind of audio visual person that's running the presentation. So this is his first time doing it. And
Did a great job.
so what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna stop sharing because it typically brings everything up. And you can do there or there. And then what you're gonna do is press that big red button, the X in. And then end webinar for all. So that's gonna shut everything down.